The crack of a gunshot echoed through the saloon, stopping Sophia O'Malley dead in her tracks as the bullet splintered the doorframe mere inches from her face. In the hazy lamplight of Loveland, Colorado, 1878, she caught the cruel smile of her husband Marcus Tate as he lowered his smoking pistol, betrayal burning in his eyes as surely as the money from her father's estate burned in his pocket. "You weren't supposed to find out about the will, darling," he drawled, reaching for another bullet. "But dead women tell no tales." Sophia bolted into the night, her heart shattering with each desperate footfall as she fled the man she'd mistakenly trusted with her life, her fortune, and her heart. That was 3 years ago. Now, at 26, Sophia stood behind the counter of her modest general store on the dusty outskirts of Loveland, her fingers tracing the weathered ledger before her. The bell above the door jangled, and she looked up with practiced indifference that immediately faltered at the sight of the tall stranger filling her doorway. The cowboy removed his hat, revealing tousled dark hair and earnest eyes that somehow reminded her of the open Colorado sky. "Madam," he said with a nod. "Isaac Prescott, new ranch foreman at the Triple Creek, heard this was the best place for supplies." Sophia straightened her spine, her face a careful mask of businesslike politeness. "You heard correct, Mr. Prescott. What can I help you with today?" Isaac approached the counter, his spurs making a gentle jingling sound against the wooden floorboards. His eyes caught hers for a moment too long, and Sophia felt an unwelcome flutter in her chest that she immediately tamped down. She'd learned her lesson about handsome men with charming smiles. "Need some basic provisions," he replied, handing her a list. "And perhaps some information if you're willing to share." "Information costs extra in these parts," Sophia said coolly, scanning the list. "Especially depending on what kind you're after." Isaac leaned slightly against the counter, close enough that she could smell the scent of leather and open prairie on him. "Just trying to get the lay of the land. Triple Creek's been neglected for some time, according to Mr. Hollister. Thought the town might have some history worth knowing." Sophia began gathering his supplies, keeping her movements efficient, her eyes averted. "Loveland's like any frontier town, Mr. Prescott. Some good folks, some bad. Some passing through, some stuck here. Nothing special about it." "And which are you, Mrs.?" His question hung in the air. "Miss O'Malley," she corrected sharply, "and I mind my business. Suggest you do the same." Isaac's expression didn't falter at her coldness. Instead, he nodded thoughtfully. "Fair enough, Miss O'Malley. I respect a person's right to privacy." As Sophia wrapped his purchases in brown paper, she noticed his hands strong but gentle as he counted out coins for payment. Not the hands of a drifter or a gambler, but of a man who worked hard for his living. "Been in these parts long?" he asked, seemingly undeterred by her frosty demeanor. "Long enough," she replied, pushing his parcels across the counter. "Will there be anything else, Mr. Prescott?" "Actually," he said, his voice dropping slightly, "I was wondering if you might know where I could find decent lodging until the foreman's cabin at Triple Creek is habitable. It's in quite a state of disrepair." Sophia sighed. She knew every establishment in town, including Widow Jennings' boarding house, which was the only respectable place for a single man to stay. "Try Widow Jennings, 3 blocks east. Tell her I sent you. She's particular about her boarders." "I appreciate that, Miss O'Malley." He gathered his packages, settling his hat back on his head. At the door, he paused. "I'll be seeing you around, I expect." "Loveland's a small town, Mr. Prescott. Seeing people around is unavoidable." His smile was warm, genuine. "Looking forward to being unavoidable, then." After he left, Sophia stood motionless behind the counter, trying to ignore the lingering scent of him in her store. Men like Isaac Prescott were dangerous not because they carried guns or made threats, but because they made a woman like her want to believe again. And belief was a luxury Sophia O'Malley could no longer afford. Over the next few weeks, Isaac became a regular at Sophia's store. He always arrived with a polite greeting and left with a genuine smile, regardless of how curt or dismissive she was with him. What irritated Sophia most was how the townsfolk had taken to him so quickly. Even Mrs. Jennings, who'd once claimed she could smell a ne'er-do-well from a county away, sang his praises. "That Mr. Prescott fixed my leaky roof yesterday evening," the widow told Sophia during her weekly shopping trip. "Wouldn't take a penny for it either. Said it was neighborly courtesy." "How convenient for you," Sophia replied, measuring out coffee beans. "A handyman who works for free." Mrs. Jennings gave her a knowing look. "Not everyone has ulterior motives, dear. Some men are genuinely good. And some men put on a good show until they get what they want," Sophia countered, thinking of Marcus and his honeyed words that had dissolved into venom once her father's money was in his grasp. Later that afternoon, as the summer sun beat down mercilessly on Loveland, the store bell jangled again. Sophia looked up from her inventory to find Isaac, dust-covered and weary-looking, but still with that easy smile that made something inside her twist uncomfortably. "Rough day at Triple Creek?" she asked, surprising herself with the question. Isaac nodded, running a hand through his hair, leaving a streak of dirt across his forehead. Hollister wasn't exaggerating about the state of things. "Half the fences are down, the barn roof's more hole than shingle, and the cattle look like they've forgotten what regular feeding feels like." Without thinking, Sophia reached beneath the counter and pulled out a clean handkerchief, holding it out to him. "You have dirt. Everywhere, actually." He chuckled, taking the cloth. "Sorry about that, been digging post holes since sunrise." He wiped his face, then looked at the now soiled handkerchief with dismay. "I'll wash this and return it to you. Keep it," she said quickly. "It's just a handkerchief. Still, I'd like to return it." He tucked it into his pocket. "Maybe I could bring it by with some fresh apple pie from Mrs. Jennings. She's teaching me her recipe tomorrow." Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Baking pies now, Mr. Prescott. Is there anything you don't do?" "Plenty," he admitted with a laugh. "Can't sing worth a lick. Can't dance without stepping on toes. And apparently, I can't convince the prettiest storekeeper in Colorado to call me Isaac instead of Mr. Prescott." The compliment caught her off guard, and she turned away to straighten some items on a shelf, hoping he wouldn't notice the flush creeping up her neck. "What can I help you with today, Mr. Prescott?" "More fence nails, if you have them. And maybe some information on where I might find additional ranch hands. Hollister's given me permission to hire on a few more men." "Sheriff Daniels keeps a list of men looking for work," she said, retrieving a box of nails from beneath the counter. "Though I'd check their references carefully if I were you." Isaac tilted his head, studying her. "You don't trust easily, do you, Miss O'Malley?" "Trust is earned, Mr. Prescott, and even then it's often misplaced." Something in his expression shifted, a flicker of understanding passing through his eyes. "Someone hurt you badly." It wasn't a question, and the gentle perception in his voice nearly undid her carefully constructed defenses. Sophia pushed the box of nails toward him with more force than necessary. "That will be 85 cents. Instead of backing away from her sharpness, Isaac placed the money on the counter and then covered her hand with his own. The touch was brief, respectful, but electric. Whoever he was a fool. Sophia pulled her hand away. "You don't know anything about me." "I'd like to," he said simply, "if you'd ever allow it." Their eyes met, and for a dangerous moment, Sophia found herself wanting to tell him everything about Marcus, about her father's death, about the night she fled with nothing but the clothes on her back and the wedding ring she'd later sold to start her store. Instead, she swallowed hard and looked away. "Good day, Mr. Prescott." He took the nails and headed for the door. "One day, Miss O'Malley, I hope you'll let me prove not all men are cut from the same cloth." After he left, Sophia pressed her palms against the cool wood of the counter, steadying herself. The last time a man had looked at her with such genuine interest, she'd ended up married to a monster who'd planned to kill her for her inheritance. She'd escaped with her life, but lost her ability to trust. Yet there was something about Isaac Prescott that made her want to believe again, and that made him the most dangerous man in Loveland. The following Sunday, Sophia sat alone in the back pew of Loveland's modest church, as was her custom. She preferred to arrive just as service began and leave before the socializing afterward. Pastor Richards had long since stopped trying to coax her into church gatherings, respecting her need for solitude while still checking in on her periodically. She was smoothing her simple navy blue dress when a murmur rippled through the congregation. Sophia looked up to see Isaac Prescott entering, freshly shaved and wearing a clean suit that fit his broad shoulders perfectly. Several young women immediately began whispering behind their fans, and Mrs. Peterson, mother to 3 unmarried daughters, straightened noticeably. To Sophia's dismay, Isaac spotted her and, with a gentle nod to several townsfolk, made his way directly to her pew. "Miss O'Malley," he said quietly, "may I join you?" Before she could refuse, Pastor Richards called for the first hymn and the congregation rose to their feet. With no graceful way to deny him, Sophia gave a tight nod. Isaac slid into the space beside her, careful to maintain a respectful distance. Throughout the service, Sophia was painfully aware of his presence, the clean scent of his shaving soap, the way his deep voice joined confidently in the hymns, the warmth radiating from his tall frame. When their fingers accidentally brushed as they both reached for a hymnal, she jerked away as if burned. "Sorry," he whispered, but the slight curve of his mouth suggested he wasn't entirely regretful. After the final prayer, Sophia gathered her things quickly, intent on making her usual hasty exit. Isaac, however, stood and stepped into the aisle, effectively blocking her path. "Would you consider taking a walk with me?" he asked. "It's a fine day, and I've been told the path along Cooper Creek is quite pleasant on Sunday afternoons." Sophia clutched her small Bible tightly. "Mr. Prescott, Isaac," he corrected gently. "And before you refuse, I should mention that Mrs. Jennings packed me an enormous picnic basket. Claimed it was to welcome me properly to Loveland, but there's enough food for half the town." "I'm sure you could find plenty of willing companions," Sophia replied, glancing pointedly at the Peterson girls, who were watching their exchange with undisguised interest. Isaac's blue eyes held her steadily. "I'm not asking plenty of willing companions. I'm asking you." Something in his straightforward manner weakened her resolve. It had been so long since she'd allowed herself any pleasure as simple as a Sunday afternoon walk. And despite her best efforts to remain aloof, she found herself curious about this man who seemed determined to breach her defenses. "A short walk," she conceded finally, "and only because Mrs. Jennings' apple turnovers are worth braving almost any company." Isaac's face broke into a genuine smile that transformed his features from merely handsome to breathtaking. "High praise indeed. I'll try not to take offense." As they left the church together, Sophia felt the stares and whispers of the townspeople following them. In 3 years, she had never accepted an invitation from any man, turning down even the most respectable suitors with cool finality. Her sudden appearance on Isaac Prescott's arm would fuel gossip for weeks. They walked in silence until they reached the edge of town, where Isaac offered her his arm. When she hesitated, he said, "The path gets rocky here. I'd hate to have to explain to the good people of Loveland how I let their shopkeeper twist an ankle on my watch." Reluctantly, Sophia placed her gloved hand on his forearm, telling herself it was merely practical. They continued along the creek path, the sound of running water and birdsong filling the silence between them. "How did you come to Loveland?" Isaac asked finally, as they reached a shady spot beneath a cluster of cottonwood trees. Sophia tensed. "That's a rather personal question." "Is it?" he countered, spreading a blanket on the ground. "Seems like the kind of thing neighbors might know about each other." "We're not neighbors, Mr. Prescott. You live at Triple Creek Ranch, a good 5 miles outside town." He sat down on the blanket and began unpacking the picnic basket. "You know, most folks would have just made up a pleasant story if they didn't want to share the truth." Sophia remained standing, unsure whether to stay or flee. "I don't believe in lies, even small ones." "Another thing we have in common, then." He held out a plate with a sandwich and one of Mrs. Jennings' famous turnovers. "Please sit." "I promise I don't bite, and I'll respect whatever boundaries you wish to set." After a moment's hesitation, Sophia carefully arranged her skirts and sat at the edge of the blanket, accepting the plate. "You said another thing. What was the first thing we supposedly have in common?" Isaac took a bite of his sandwich, chewing thoughtfully before answering. "A certain wariness. You wear yours more openly, but I recognized it from the first day we met." Sophia stiffened. "I'm not wary, I'm practical." "Practical would be caution. What you have is a fortress." He gestured toward her with his sandwich. "And fortresses aren't built without reason." She looked away, watching the sunlight dance on the creek's surface. "Perhaps I simply value my privacy." "Perhaps," he agreed easily. "Or perhaps someone made you believe that walls were the only way to stay safe." The accuracy of his perception unnerved her. Sophia bit into the turnover, using the moment to compose herself. "You seem to have me all figured out, Mr. Prescott." "Not at all," he replied, his voice softening. "I just recognize the look of someone who's been betrayed, seen it in the mirror often enough." This unexpected confession caught her attention. "You, the man who's charmed half of Loveland in less than a month." A shadow passed over his features. "Being able to get along with folks doesn't mean you trust them with your secrets." He took a sip from a canteen. "My father was a banker in Boston. Respected, admired. Turned out he was stealing from his clients for years. When it all came crashing down, he took his own life rather than face the consequences." Sophia's breath caught. "I'm sorry." "I was 19. Had to drop out of university to help support my mother and sisters. Took whatever work I could find, eventually learned ranching from the ground up." His eyes met hers. "The point is, I understand what it's like when the person you're supposed to be able to trust most in the world betrays that trust completely." For the first time since meeting Isaac Prescott, Sophia felt the rigid walls around her heart crack, just slightly. "It changes you," she said quietly. "It does," he agreed. "But at some point you have to decide if you're going to let that change define the rest of your life." They ate in contemplative silence for several minutes, the gentle sounds of nature surrounding them. Finally, Sophia gathered her courage. "My husband tried to kill me," she said, the words tumbling out before she could reconsider. 3 years ago. He married me for my father's money, and when I discovered his plan to claim it all after my tragic accident, he decided to make the accident happen sooner rather than later." Isaac's face darkened with anger, but he remained silent, allowing her to continue. "I ran that night. Left everything behind. Came to Loveland because no one knew me here. Used my mother's maiden name. Started the store with money from selling my wedding ring." She smoothed her skirt, avoiding his eyes. As far as I know, he thinks I'm dead. There was a flash flood the night I escaped. They found a woman's body downstream a few days later. Isaac reached across the blanket, his hand stopping just short of touching hers. "Sophia," he said, using her first name for the first time. "Thank you for trusting me with that." She looked up, meeting his gaze. "I don't know why I told you." "Maybe because sometimes keeping secrets becomes more exhausting than sharing them," he suggested gently. Sophia found herself nodding. "I haven't told anyone, not even Mrs. Jennings, and she's been kinder to me than anyone in this town." "Your secret is safe with me," Isaac promised. "And for what it's worth, I think you're the bravest person I've met. Building a new life alone after what you've been through. That takes remarkable strength." Something warm unfurled in Sophia's chest at his words, not the dangerous flutter of attraction, but something deeper, more fundamental. The feeling of being truly seen, perhaps for the first time since her father died. "We should head back," she said, suddenly uncomfortable with her own vulnerability. "People will talk." Isaac began packing up the remains of their picnic. "Let them. I've never much cared what others think." "That's a luxury some of us can't afford," Sophia replied, thinking of how precious her reputation was to her business and her security. He studied her face for a moment. "Fair point. But just so we're clear, Miss O'Malley, I intend to call on you again, properly, with the respect you deserve." Sophia stood, brushing crumbs from her skirt. "Mr. Prescott, Isaac," he corrected again. "Isaac," she conceded reluctantly. "I'm not looking for courtship, or friendship for that matter." He picked up the picnic basket, offering her his arm once more. "Then it's fortunate I'm a patient man. Because I believe some things, some people are worth waiting for." As they walked back toward town, Sophia kept a proper distance between them, but something had shifted. The walls around her heart, while still standing, had developed a small, troubling crack. And Isaac Prescott, with his gentle persistence and understanding eyes, seemed determined to find it. Over the next month, Isaac became an increasingly common presence in Sophia's life, despite her initial resistance. He would stop by the store several times a week, sometimes to purchase supplies, other times with small gifts, fresh flowers from Mrs. Jennings' garden, a book he thought she might enjoy, or once, a jar of wild honey from hives he'd discovered on Triple Creek land. "The bees did all the work," he said when she protested that she couldn't accept it. "I'm merely the delivery boy." While Sophia maintained her outward reserve, she found her internal defenses weakening. Isaac never pushed for more than she was willing to give, but his steady presence and genuine interest in her thoughts gradually wore away at her determination to keep him at arm's length. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, the store was empty when Isaac arrived, soaked to the skin and grinning despite his drenched state. "You look like you fell in the creek," Sophia remarked, unable to suppress a small smile at his bedraggled appearance. "Close enough," he laughed, removing his dripping hat. "Got caught in the downpour halfway to town. Thought about turning back, but I promised Mrs. Jennings I'd pick up her order today." Sophia handed him a towel she kept behind the counter. "You're dripping all over my clean floor." "My sincerest apologies," he said, making an exaggerated bow that sent more water flying. When Sophia stepped back with a surprised laugh, his eyes lit up. "There it is." "There what is?" "Your laugh. I've been trying to coax it out for weeks now." He dried his face, watching her with undisguised affection. "It's even lovelier than I imagined." Sophia turned away, busying herself with gathering Mrs. Jennings' order, hoping he wouldn't notice the flush spreading across her cheeks. "You're ridiculous." "Possibly," he agreed cheerfully. "But I made you laugh." As she wrapped the parcels, thunder rumbled overhead and the rain intensified, beating a furious rhythm against the store's windows and roof. "This is turning into quite the storm," Isaac observed. "Might be best if I waited out a bit." Sophia glanced outside at the nearly flooded street. The idea of being alone with him in the empty store made her both nervous and strangely exhilarated. "I suppose that would be sensible." "I brought something to show you anyway," he said, reaching into his jacket and pulling out a slightly damp envelope. "Got this letter from my mother yesterday. She's finally accepted my invitation to come visit Loveland next month. You've asked your mother to come all the way from Boston." Sophia asked, surprised. Isaac nodded, leaning against the counter. "She's never been west of the Mississippi. Figure it's time she saw what her son has been up to these past years." He hesitated, then added, "I'd like for you to meet her." The implication of his request wasn't lost on Sophia. Meeting his mother would signal a level of commitment to their relationship, whatever it was that she wasn't sure she was ready for. "Isaac, before you say no," he interrupted gently, "just know that my mother is the least judgmental person you'll ever meet. And she makes the best blueberry cobbler in Massachusetts." Despite her reservations, Sophia found herself curious about the woman who had raised such a man. "I'll consider it. That's all I ask." His smile was warm enough to chase away the chill of the rainy day. As the storm continued outside, they fell into easy conversation. Isaac told her stories about his sisters, one a schoolteacher, the other recently married to a doctor, and Sophia found herself sharing memories of her own childhood in St. Louis before her mother's death and her father's business success. "He was a good man," she said softly, thinking of her father. "Too trusting, perhaps. He believed the best of everyone." "Including your husband?" Isaac asked carefully. Sophia nodded. "Marcus charmed him completely. I think father was so happy to see me with a suitor he didn't look closely enough at the man behind the smile." "And you?" She traced a pattern on the counter with her fingertip. "I was young. 22, sheltered, flattered by the attention of a handsome man with grand stories and grander dreams. When he proposed after just 2 months, I thought it was romantic." "It's not your fault," Isaac said, his voice low and serious. "Predators like that, they're skilled at finding targets, at making you believe." Sophia looked up, meeting his steady gaze. "How did you become so wise, Mr. Prescott?" "Not wisdom. Experience." He reached across the counter, his fingers stopping just short of hers. "After my father's disgrace, I watched my mother blame herself for not seeing the signs, for not somehow preventing his crimes. It took her years to understand that his choices weren't her responsibility." Without thinking, Sophia closed the distance between their hands, allowing her fingers to rest lightly against his. The simple contact sent warmth racing up her arm. "And what about you? Did you blame yourself too?" "For a long time," he admitted. "Wondered if I could have stopped him somehow if I'd been more observant. Eventually realized that kind of thinking is its own prison." Outside, the rain began to ease, sunlight breaking through the clouds. Sophia reluctantly withdrew her hand. "The storm's passing." Isaac straightened, collecting Mrs. Jennings' parcels. "So it is." He studied her face for a moment. "Thank you." "For what?" "For letting me stay, for talking with me, for trusting me even a little." Sophia folded the towel he'd used, her movements deliberate. "I haven't decided if I trust you yet, Isaac Prescott." "Fair enough." He settled his now merely damp hat on his head. "But I mean to earn it, Sophia O'Malley, however long it takes." As he headed for the door, Sophia called after him. "Isaac," he turned, eyebrows raised in question. "I'll meet your mother when she comes." His smile was like sunrise after the storm, brilliant, warm, full of promise. "I'll tell her to bring extra cobbler." After he left, Sophia stood motionless behind the counter, her hand still tingling where it had touched his. For the first time in 3 years, the prospect of opening her heart again seemed less like reckless endangerment, and more like a risk that might be worth taking. The next week brought an unexpected development that threatened the fragile peace Sophia had established in Loveland. She was restocking shelves early one morning when Sheriff Daniels pushed through the door, his expression unusually grave. "Morning, Sophia," he said, removing his hat. "Got a moment to talk?" Something in his tone made her stomach clench with apprehension. "Of course, Sheriff. What can I help you with?" He glanced around the empty store before continuing. "Got a wire from St. Louis yesterday. Marshal there is looking for information about a woman named Sophia Tate." The sound of her married name spoken aloud after 3 years sent ice through her veins. Sophia gripped the edge of a shelf to steady herself. "Oh, seems her husband's been searching for her. Claims she disappeared with family valuables after her father's death." Sheriff Daniels watched her closely. "Thought it was an odd coincidence, you showing up here around the same time this Sophia Tate went missing." Sophia swallowed hard, her mind racing. She'd been so careful, using her mother's maiden name, never speaking of St. Louis. That is a strange coincidence. The sheriff's eyes were kind but probing. "Sophia, I've known you 3 years now. You've been nothing but honest and hardworking since the day you arrived. If there's something I should know, something I might need to protect you from, now would be the time to tell me." For a moment, Sophia considered maintaining her charade, but the genuine concern in Sheriff Daniels' face broke her resolve. She gestured toward the small sitting area at the back of the store. "Perhaps we should sit down." Over the next hour, Sophia told him everything: her marriage to Marcus Tate, her father's death, discovering Marcus' plan to murder her for the inheritance, and her desperate flight that stormy night. Sheriff Daniels listened without interruption, his weathered face growing increasingly troubled. "So this Marcus Tate," he said finally. "He thinks you're dead." "I assumed so," Sophia replied. "There was a flash flood the night I left. A woman's body was found downstream a few days later. The newspapers reported it might be me." "Well, he clearly doesn't believe it," the sheriff said grimly. "Wire says he's offering a substantial reward for information leading to your return. Claims you're mentally unstable, ran off with family heirlooms." Sophia gave a bitter laugh. "The only thing I took was the dress I was wearing. He's the one who emptied my father's safe before the body was even cold." Sheriff Daniels studied her for a long moment. "I believe you, Sophia. But you should know men like that, men with money and connections. They can make things difficult, especially without proof of his crimes." "What are you saying?" she asked, fear tightening around her throat. "I'm saying you might need to prepare yourself. If he's actively searching, it's only a matter of time before someone makes the connection." He reached across the table, patting her hand awkwardly. "For now, I'll wire back that I have no information about any Sophia Tate, but you might want to consider your options." After the sheriff left, Sophia closed the store early, retreating to her small apartment above it. The walls that had felt like a sanctuary for 3 years suddenly seemed fragile, permeable. If Marcus was looking for her, would she still be safe? As evening fell, a gentle knock at her private entrance startled her from her troubled thoughts. Cautiously, she approached the door. "Who is it?" "Isaac," came the reply. "Sheriff Daniels mentioned you closed early, wanted to make sure everything was all right." Sophia hesitated, her hand on the latch. The events of the day had left her feeling exposed, vulnerable. The last thing she wanted was company. And yet, she opened the door to find Isaac standing there, concern evident in his eyes. "You didn't have to check on me," she said, even as she stepped back to let him enter. "I know," he replied simply, removing his hat as he crossed the threshold. "But I wanted to." Her small sitting room with its modest furniture and carefully chosen books suddenly felt different with Isaac's tall frame occupying the space. He remained standing, seeming to sense her unease. "What happened, Sophia?" he asked quietly. For a moment, she considered deflecting, offering some benign explanation for closing early. But the weight of the sheriff's news pressed on her, and the thought of carrying it alone was suddenly unbearable. "Marcus is looking for me," she said, the words falling between them like stones. "My husband, he's offering a reward." Isaac's expression hardened. "Here, in Loveland? Not yet. But he's contacted the marshal in St. Louis. It's only a matter of time." Sophia sank into a chair, sudden exhaustion washing over her. "I thought I was safe. I thought he believed I was dead." Isaac knelt before her chair, his eyes level with hers. "Does Sheriff Daniels know the truth?" She nodded. "I told him everything this morning. He's going to deny knowing anything about Sophia Tate, but he warned me that might not be enough. Not forever." "Then we'll have to make sure you're protected," Isaac said, determination hardening his features. "If this man comes to Loveland, he'll find more than he bargained for." "You don't understand," Sophia said, a tremor entering her voice. "Marcus has money connections. He's convincing he can make people believe whatever he wants them to believe. The people of Loveland know you, Sophia. They respect you. No stranger's going to waltz in and change that." She shook her head. "You don't know him." "No," Isaac agreed, "but I know you, and I know myself." He reached for her hand, enclosing it in his larger one. "You don't have to face this alone." The warmth of his touch, the unwavering certainty in his voice, they broke something open inside Sophia. Without warning, tears spilled down her cheeks, 3 years of fear and loneliness finally finding release. Isaac didn't hesitate. He simply gathered her into his arms, holding her against his chest as she wept. "I've been so afraid," she confessed against his shirt. "For so long." "I know," he murmured, his hand making soothing circles on her back. "But you're not alone anymore. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." Wrapped in his embrace, Sophia allowed herself to believe him just for this moment, just for tonight. Tomorrow the fear would return. Tomorrow, she would have to decide whether to run again or stand her ground. But tonight, in the circle of Isaac's arms, she permitted herself to imagine a future where she wasn't always looking over her shoulder, where trust wasn't a luxury she couldn't afford. "Thank you," she whispered, slowly pulling away, suddenly conscious of their closeness. Isaac released her reluctantly, but his eyes remained fixed on hers. "Sophia," he said, his voice roughened with emotion, "I want you to know something." She brushed away the remnants of tears. "What?" "Whatever happens, whatever you decide to do, stay and fight or leave Loveland, I'll support you. But I want you to know." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "I care for you, more than I've cared for anyone in a very long time, and I will do whatever it takes to keep you safe." The declaration hung between them, both a promise and a revelation. Sophia's heart pounded against her ribs, a strange mixture of fear and something warmer, something she'd thought she would never feel again, flooding through her. "I don't know what to say," she admitted finally. Isaac smiled gently. "You don't have to say anything, just know that you're not facing this alone." He stood, reaching for his hat. "It's getting late, I should go." At the door, he turned back. "Will you open the store tomorrow?" Sophia nodded. "Yes." "I won't let him disrupt my life any more than he already has." "Good," pride shone in Isaac's eyes. "I'll stop by in the morning, and Sophia—" "Yes. Sleep well. Tomorrow we start figuring this out together." After he left, Sophia stood in the middle of her small sitting room, her emotions in turmoil. The threat of Marcus loomed larger than ever, but for the first time since that terrifying night 3 years ago, she didn't feel completely alone. Isaac's promise echoed in her mind. Together. It was a dangerous word, a dangerous concept. And yet, as she prepared for bed, Sophia found herself clinging to it like a lifeline in a storm-tossed sea. True to his word, Isaac arrived at the store early the next morning, bringing not only coffee and fresh bread from Mrs. Jennings' kitchen but also a determined plan. "I've been thinking," he said, watching Sophia unlock the front door. "If your husband believes you're dead, why is he suddenly looking for you now, 3 years later?" Sophia paused, key in hand. "I've been wondering the same thing. It doesn't make sense. Unless," Isaac continued, following her inside, "something happened to make him doubt the reports of your death." She turned to face him, brow furrowed. "Like what? Could someone from St. Louis have seen you? A traveler passing through Loveland, perhaps?" Sophia shook her head. "I've been careful, and St. Louis is a big city. The chances of someone recognizing me here are slim." "What about correspondence? Have you written to anyone from your past life?" "No one except—" Sophia trailed off, realization dawning. "My father's lawyer. I wrote to him last month, asking about the status of my father's estate. I used a false name, but lawyers are trained to notice details," Isaac finished grimly. "And if this Marcus has been in contact with him, he could have recognized my handwriting, or something in the letter might have given me away." Sophia sank onto a nearby stool, her face pale. "I was a fool. After 3 years I thought it might be safe." Isaac placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You weren't a fool. You were trying to reclaim something that was rightfully yours. And now I might lose everything all over again. Not if we can help it." Isaac's voice hardened with resolve. "What if we could prove his intentions, get evidence of the threat he poses to you?" Sophia looked up at him, confusion etching her features. "How? He's in St. Louis, and even if he comes here, he's too clever to reveal his true nature publicly." "But what if he thought you were unprotected, vulnerable?" Isaac began to pace, his mind clearly working through a plan. "What if he believed he could get away with harming you?" "You're suggesting using me as bait," Sophia said flatly. "That's madness." "Not you," Isaac corrected. "A situation that makes him reveal himself for what he truly is." He stopped pacing, turning to face her. "If Sheriff Daniels and I were to witness his true intentions, it would be your word against his," Sophia argued, "and Marcus is very convincing." "Then we get more than words," Isaac insisted. "We get proof, undeniable evidence of his character and his crimes." His eyes locked with hers. "Sophia, do you want to spend the rest of your life running, looking over your shoulder? Or do you want to be free of him once and for all?" Put that way, the choice seemed clear. And yet, the prospect of confronting Marcus, of being in the same town, the same room as the man who had nearly killed her, sent waves of terror through her. "I don't know if I'm brave enough," she whispered. Isaac crossed to her, taking both her hands in his. "You are the bravest person I know. You survived him once. You built a new life from nothing. That took incredible courage." His thumbs traced gentle circles on her wrists. "But this time, you won't be facing him alone." Looking up into Isaac's earnest face, Sophia felt something shift inside her, a tentative acceptance of the possibility that this man, unlike Marcus, might actually be someone she could trust. Someone who would stand beside her, not over her. "What exactly did you have in mind?" she asked. A slow smile spread across Isaac's features. "First, we talked to Sheriff Daniels. Then we set a trap that Marcus Tate won't be able to resist." Over the next week, Sophia, Isaac, and Sheriff Daniels developed their plan. Word would be discreetly spread that a widow named Sophia O'Malley owned a modestly successful store in Loveland, Colorado, information that would eventually make its way back to St. Louis through carefully chosen channels. "If he takes the bait, he'll come to verify it's you," the sheriff explained. "And when he does, we'll be ready." Despite the logical soundness of their plan, Sophia's anxiety increased daily. Each time the bell above the store door jingled, her heart leaped into her throat, only to settle back when a familiar face appeared. Isaac, sensing her growing distress, took to spending more time at the store, often bringing paperwork from Triple Creek to complete at a small table near the counter. His presence was both comforting and confusing to Sophia, who found herself increasingly drawn to him even as she fought against the vulnerability of attachment. "You don't have to babysit me," she told him one afternoon, after the third straight day of his extended presence in her store. Isaac looked up from the ledger before him, amusement crinkling the corners of his eyes. "Is that what you think I'm doing, aren't you? You have a ranch to run, yet you're spending hours here every day." He closed the ledger, giving her his full attention. "Triple Creek is running smoothly. I hired those additional hands, remember? And as for why I'm here—" He hesitated, then continued with characteristic directness. "I'm here because I want to be near you, Sophia, because every hour in your company is preferable to a day anywhere else." His honesty left her momentarily speechless. Before she could formulate a response, the store bell jangled, and Mrs. Peterson entered with her eldest daughter, Charlotte. "Good afternoon, Miss O'Malley," Mrs. Peterson greeted, her sharp eyes taking in Isaac's presence with undisguised interest. "Mr. Prescott, how convenient to find you both together." Sophia straightened, professional smile firmly in place. "Mrs. Peterson, Miss Peterson, what can I help you with today?" As she assisted the Petersons with their shopping, Sophia was acutely aware of the speculative glances Mrs. Peterson kept directing between her and Isaac. By the time they left, the older woman's expression had shifted from curiosity to calculation. "That woman will have us married by sundown in her gossip," Sophia remarked dryly, once they were alone again. Isaac chuckled. "Would that be so terrible?" The question, asked with such casual sincerity, caught Sophia completely off guard. "Isaac, I'm not proposing," he clarified quickly, though something in his eyes suggested the idea wasn't entirely unwelcome. "Just wondering why the prospect of being linked to me seems to alarm you so." Sophia busied herself rearranging a display of canned goods. "It's not you specifically. It's the idea of being connected to anyone again." "Because of Marcus." "Yes," she admitted. "And because I've worked hard for my independence, for my place here." Isaac approached her slowly like one might approach a skittish horse. "Sophia," he said gently, "caring for someone doesn't mean surrendering your independence. At least it shouldn't." She turned to face him, her arms wrapped protectively around herself. "In my experience, men say that until they have what they want. Then the rules change." "I'm not Marcus Tate," Isaac said, his voice low but intense. "I don't want to possess you or control you. I want to stand beside you, partner with you. Protect you, yes, but not because you're weak, because you're precious to me." The sincerity in his voice and his steady gaze made something inside Sophia ache with longing. How easy it would be to believe him, to lean into the comfort and strength he offered. How tempting to imagine a future where she wasn't alone, and yet, "I can't," she whispered. "Not yet, maybe not ever, I'm sorry." Instead of anger or disappointment, understanding filled Isaac's expression. "I know," he said simply. "And I meant what I said before. I'm a patient man." "I'll wait, Sophia, for however long it takes." Before she could respond, the store bell jangled again. Both turned to see Sheriff Daniels entering, his expression unusually grim. "Sophia, Isaac," he nodded. "Just got a wire from the marshal in Denver. Man fitting Marcus Tate's description was seen boarding a train headed this way yesterday morning." Sophia's blood turned to ice. "He's coming here. Now." "Appears so," the sheriff confirmed. "If he keeps to the regular schedule, he'll arrive on tomorrow afternoon's train." Isaac moved to Sophia's side, not touching her but close enough that she could feel his solid presence. "Then we stick to the plan. We're as ready as we'll ever be. I've arranged for Deputy Miller to be at the station when the train arrives," Sheriff Daniels continued. "He'll keep an eye on any new arrivals matching Tate's description, but he won't approach him." Sophia nodded mechanically, her mind racing with the imminent reality of facing Marcus again. "Thank you, Sheriff." After the sheriff left, Isaac turned to her. "Sophia, look at me." She raised her eyes to his, unable to hide the fear that had settled over her like a shroud. "Tomorrow, we end this," he said with quiet conviction. "One way or another, Marcus Tate will never threaten you again." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I won't let him," Isaac replied, the steel in his voice matching the determination in his eyes. "Neither will Sheriff Daniels, nor half the town if it comes to that. You're not alone anymore, Sophia. Remember that." That night, alone in her apartment, Sophia barely slept. Every creak of the building, every whisper of wind outside her window, set her nerves jangling. By dawn, she had resigned herself to facing the day on courage and strong coffee alone. She dressed with particular care, selecting a simple but elegant blue dress that highlighted her eyes and gave her an air of confidence she didn't entirely feel. As she pinned her hair into its usual neat arrangement, Sophia studied her reflection in the mirror. 3 years in Loveland had changed her, hardened her in some ways, strengthened her in others. The scared young widow who had arrived with nothing but determination was gone, replaced by a woman who had built a life, a business, a place in this community. "He can't take that from me," she told her reflection firmly. "Not again. Not ever." The morning passed in a blur of routine tasks and tense waiting. Isaac arrived mid-morning as promised, his calm presence a balancing force against her anxiety. At noon, Sheriff Daniels stopped by to confirm that Deputy Miller was in position at the train station. "Train's due at 2 o'clock, he reminded them. "I'll be nearby but out of sight. Remember the plan. If it's him, let him make the first move. We need him to reveal his true intentions." As the appointed hour approached, Sophia found herself behind the counter, mechanically counting inventory while Isaac pretended to read a newspaper at his usual table. The tick of the clock on the wall seemed unnaturally loud in the quiet store. At precisely 2:15, the bell above the door jangled. Sophia looked up, her practiced shopkeeper's smile freezing on her face as Marcus Tate stepped into her store. 3 years had changed him little. He was still handsome in a polished, calculated way, immaculately dressed, his dark hair perfectly arranged, his smile as charming and false as she remembered. Only his eyes, cold and assessing as they fixed on her, betrayed his true nature. "Sophia," he said, his voice a silky purr that once made her heart race with infatuation and now made her skin crawl. "My dear, lost wife, what a miracle to find you alive." Isaac set down his newspaper with deliberate calm, but remained seated as they had planned. Marcus's gaze flickered briefly to him before returning to Sophia. "Marcus," she acknowledged, her voice steadier than she had feared it might be, "you're a long way from St. Louis." He approached the counter, removing his expensive leather gloves one finger at a time. "Indeed I am." Imagine my surprise when I began hearing rumors that my presumably dead wife might be alive and well in some frontier backwater. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "You've led me on quite the chase, my dear." "I wasn't aware I was being chased," Sophia replied evenly. "Considering you tried to kill me, I assumed you'd be content with the reports of my death." Marcus's smile faltered slightly, his gaze darting to Isaac before recovering its smooth confidence. "What an extraordinary accusation." "I was devastated by news of your disappearance, spent a small fortune searching for you." To recover the family valuables I supposedly stole, Sophia challenged, remembering the sheriff's report, among other things. Marcus's voice hardened fractionally. You abandoned our marriage, Sophia. Left without a word in the middle of the night. You can hardly blame me for being concerned about your state of mind or my property. Isaac shifted in his seat, a subtle reminder of his presence. Marcus glanced at him again, this time with more focused attention. I don't believe we've been introduced, he said smoothly, extending a hand. Marcus Tate, Sophia's husband. Isaac stood, his tall frame dwarfing Marcus's more compact build. Isaac Prescott, he replied, accepting the handshake with visible reluctance. Friend of Miss O'Malley's. Miss O'Malley, Marcus repeated, turning back to Sophia with raised eyebrows. How interesting. I wasn't aware our marriage had been dissolved. It will be, Sophia said firmly, as soon as possible. Marcus's expression hardened for a fraction of a second before smoothing into concerned affability. Sophia, darling, you're clearly confused. Whatever delusions led you to flee that night. I'm not delusional, Marcus, Sophia interrupted, her voice steady. I know exactly what happened. I overheard your conversation with James Barrett that night, about adjusting my father's will, about arranging my accident once the estate was settled. For the first time, genuine surprise flashed across Marcus's features, quickly replaced by calculation. You misunderstood, clearly. James was my lawyer, helping me protect your interests by forging documents, by planning my death. Sophia's hands gripped the edge of the counter. I heard everything, Marcus, and then you tried to shoot me when I confronted you. Marcus glanced around the empty store, his demeanor shifting subtly. There's no one to hear these wild accusations, Sophia. It's your word against mine. His voice dropped to a menacing whisper. And a wife can't testify against her husband. You do well to remember that. She's not alone, Isaac said, moving to stand beside her. And this isn't St. Louis, Tate. Your money doesn't buy influence here. Marcus assessed Isaac with cold contempt. I see. You found yourself a protector in this. Cowboy. He turned back to Sophia, his voice softening to the persuasive tone she remembered all too well. Sophia, be reasonable. You're my wife. Your place is with me in St. Louis. Whatever misunderstanding drove you away, we can resolve it. There was no misunderstanding, Sophia replied. And I'm not going anywhere with you. Marcus's facade of patience cracked slightly. You have no choice. The law is clear, a wife belongs with her husband. Not if that husband is a would-be murderer, Isaac countered. Marcus's hand moved toward his jacket, and Sophia's breath caught, but he merely withdrew a handkerchief, dabbing at his forehead with affected weariness. This is becoming tiresome. Sophia, collect your things. We're leaving on the evening train. No, Marcus, I'm not going anywhere with you. His eyes narrowed dangerously. Don't test me, Sophia. I've spent 3 years and considerable resources tracking you down. I won't leave empty-handed. What do you really want, Tate? Isaac demanded. It can't be her, not after all this time. Marcus's gaze flickered with irritation. Stay out of this, Cowboy. This is between a man and his wife. It's the money, isn't it? Sophia said suddenly, understanding dawning. Father's estate. You need me to claim it. A muscle in Marcus's jaw twitched. Your father's estate rightfully belongs to both of us. As his only heir, you need to be physically present to complete the transfer. So that's why you've suddenly decided I might not be dead after all, Sophia said, disgust evident in her voice. You couldn't access the inheritance without me. Marcus's patience visibly thinned. Enough of this. You're coming with me, Sophia, one way or another. He reached inside his jacket again, this time withdrawing a small pistol. I'd prefer not to make a scene, but I will if necessary. Isaac tensed beside Sophia, but she placed a restraining hand on his arm. There it is. she said quietly. Your true self, Marcus, always just beneath the surface. Don't be dramatic, Marcus snapped, gesturing with the gun. Move away from the counter, both of you. As they complied, Marcus's confidence seemed to grow. I underestimated you once, Sophia. I won't make that mistake again. Once we've secured your father's estate, we'll have to make arrangements to ensure you don't wander off again. You mean kill me, Sophia said flatly. Say it plainly, Marcus. No one's here to hear you except the man you plan to murder alongside me. Marcus's smile was chilling. Always so direct. It's one of the things I found charming about you initially, before it became tiresome. He gestured with the gun again. Now, we're going to walk out of here calmly. My carriage is waiting around the corner. Any attempt to alert the townsfolk, and I'll be forced to use this regrettable but necessary. And if we refuse, Isaac challenged, Marcus's gaze hardened. Then I'll shoot you where you stand, claim self-defense when this unstable woman's lover attacked me as I attempted to retrieve my poor, confused wife. He shrugged. Either way, I leave with Sophia. As they moved toward the door, tension crackling between them, Sophia caught Isaac's eye briefly. A nearly imperceptible nod passed between them. You won't get away with this, Tate, Isaac said, his voice carrying clearly. Not here, not today. It was the signal they'd arranged. As if on cue, the back door of the store burst open and Sheriff Daniels entered, his gun drawn and aimed steadily at Marcus. Marcus Tate, the sheriff announced firmly. I'm placing you under arrest for attempted kidnapping and threatening citizens of Loveland with a deadly weapon. Marcus's face contorted with fury as he realized the trap. He swung the gun toward the sheriff, but before he could fire, Isaac lunged forward, tackling him to the ground. The gun discharged into the ceiling as they struggled, plaster dust raining down on them. With surprising strength for his size, Marcus fought viciously, landing a solid blow to Isaac's jaw. But Isaac, hardened by years of ranch work, quickly gained the upper hand, pinning Marcus to the floor as Sheriff Daniels moved in to secure him. You planned this, Marcus snarled at Sophia as the sheriff handcuffed him. You conniving bitch. That's enough, Sheriff Daniels cut him off sharply. You've said plenty already, Tate, all of which Deputy Miller has been recording from the storeroom. He nodded toward the back, where the deputy emerged, notebook in hand. Your confession to tracking down Mrs. Tate with the intent to force her back to St. Louis against her should be enough to keep you occupied for quite some time. As the sheriff recited the charges, Isaac moved to Sophia's side. Are you all right? He asked softly, his eyes scanning her face with concern. Sophia nodded, suddenly feeling light-headed with relief and lingering fear. Yes. You're bleeding, she added, noticing a cut above his eye from the struggle. He touched it absently. It's nothing. Sheriff Daniels and Deputy Miller hauled the still protesting Marcus to his feet. We'll take him to the jail, the sheriff told them. Sophia, I'll need you to come by later to give a formal statement. I will, she promised, watching as they marched Marcus out the front door, his elegant appearance now disheveled, his mask of charm completely discarded. When they were gone, the store fell into silence broken only by their breathing and the settling of dust from the damaged ceiling. Sophia stood motionless, the reality of what had just occurred washing over her in waves. Marcus was caught, his true nature exposed. The nightmare that had haunted her for 3 years might finally be ending. Sophia. Isaac's gentle voice broke through her thoughts. Do you want to sit down? You're pale. She shook her head, turning to face him fully. He's really gone, she whispered. After all this time, all this fear. He can't hurt you anymore, Isaac confirmed, reaching out to tentatively touch her arm. You're free of him. The enormity of that statement, the truth of it, hit Sophia with physical force. Free. She was free. The walls she'd built around her heart, the constant vigilance, the fear of attachment, all of it had been in service of surviving Marcus's threat. And now, without warning, Sophia closed the distance between them, wrapping her arms around Isaac's solid frame and burying her face against his chest. His arms encircled her immediately, strong and secure, as she trembled with the release of 3 years of tension. "Thank you," she murmured against his shirt, "for believing me, for helping me face him." Isaac's hand came up to cradle the back of her head, his touch infinitely tender. "You did the hard part, Sophia. You stood up to him. You refused to run." His voice was rough with emotion. "I've never seen such courage." She pulled back slightly to look up at him, suddenly very aware of their closeness, of the steady beat of his heart beneath her palm, of the warmth in his eyes as they met hers. "Isaac," she said softly, "I think I'm ready now." "Ready?" he echoed, his brow furrowing slightly. "To trust again," Sophia clarified, her voice gaining strength. "To trust you." Understanding dawned in his eyes, followed by a joy so pure it transformed his features. Slowly, giving her every chance to withdraw, Isaac lowered his head until his lips were a breath away from hers. "May I?" he whispered. In answer, Sophia rose on her tiptoes, closing the final distance between them. His lips met hers with exquisite gentleness, a promise rather than a demand, an offering rather than a taking. Sophia's hands moved to his shoulders, steadying herself as the kiss deepened, becoming a testament to all they had survived together and all that might lie ahead. When they finally parted, Isaac rested his forehead against hers, his thumbs tracing gentle circles on her cheeks. "I've wanted to do that since the first day I walked into your store," he admitted with a smile. "Even though I was cold as a Colorado winter to you." Sophia teased, marveling at how light her heart suddenly felt, as if years of burden had been lifted from her shoulders. "Especially then," Isaac chuckled. "I knew right away you were worth the effort of thawing out." Sophia playfully swatted his arm but sobered quickly. "I can't promise I won't still have moments of doubt, of fear." "I don't expect perfection," Isaac assured her, "just honesty. And the chance to show you day by day that some promises are kept, some trusts are honored." His expression grew serious. "I meant what I said, Sophia. Let me prove I'm different." Looking up into his earnest face, this man who had stood beside her through danger without trying to control her, who had respected her boundaries even as he gently challenged her fears, Sophia felt the last of her reservations begin to crumble. "I believe you already have," she said softly, rising once more to seal her words with a kiss. In the days following Marcus's arrest, Loveland buzzed with the story. Sheriff Daniels had wired the authorities in St. Louis, who confirmed that Marcus was wanted for questioning regarding irregularities in several estates he had managed, including manipulated wills and missing funds. With Deputy Miller's careful notes of his threats, and the testimony of Sophia, Isaac, and the sheriff, Marcus was transferred to Denver to await trial on multiple charges. Sophia's initial concern that the town might view her differently once they learned her true identity proved unfounded. Instead, the people of Loveland rallied around her with support and understanding. Mrs. Jennings baked her favorite apple turnovers. Mr. Thompson, the banker, offered advice on legally reclaiming her maiden name. Even the Peterson women expressed solidarity, with Charlotte declaring that Marcus Tate deserved to be horsewhipped for his villainy. Through it all, Isaac remained steadfastly by her side, not hovering, but present whenever she needed him. Their relationship blossomed in the open now, free from the shadow of Marcus's threat and Sophia's crippling fear of trust. One evening, 2 months after Marcus's arrest, Isaac invited Sophia for a ride to Triple Creek. As they crested the hill overlooking the ranch, the setting sun bathed the valley in golden light, highlighting the improvements Isaac had made during his tenure as foreman. New fences stretched across the pastures, the barn gleamed with fresh paint, and a small herd of cattle grazed contentedly by the creek. "It's beautiful," Sophia said, genuinely impressed. "You've done wonders here, Isaac." He helped her down from her horse, keeping hold of her hand as they walked toward a large oak tree with a checkered blanket spread beneath it. A picnic basket sat waiting along with a bouquet of wildflowers. "I had some help," he admitted with a smile. "Mrs. Jennings packed the food. Said she didn't trust my cooking skills yet." "Wise woman," Sophia teased, settling onto the blanket. As they ate, watching the sun sink lower in the sky, Isaac grew uncharacteristically quiet. Sophia, who had come to know his moods well, sensed he had something important on his mind. "Is everything all right?" she asked finally. "You seem preoccupied." Isaac set down his glass, turning to face her fully. "I received a letter from Mr. Hollister yesterday. He's decided to sell Triple Creek." "Oh, Isaac," Sophia said, dismayed. "After all your hard work." "Will you lose your position?" "That depends," he replied, a mysterious smile playing at his lips. "You see, Hollister offered me first right to purchase the property. Said I've done more for this land in 6 months than the previous owners did in years." Sophia's eyes widened. "You're going to buy Triple Creek?" "Isaac, that's wonderful. I'm considering it," he said carefully. "But such a decision affects more than just me now." He took her hand, his expression serious yet tender. "Sophia, these past months with you have been the happiest of my life. I know we agreed to take things slowly, to give you time to heal from the past, and I've treasured every moment of our journey together." Sophia's heart began to race as she realized where the conversation was heading. "Isaac, please," he said gently, "let me finish. I want to buy Triple Creek, Sophia. I want to make it our home if you'll have me." He reached into his pocket, withdrawing a small velvet box. "I'm not Marcus Tate. I don't want to own you or control you. I want to partner with you, build a life with you, face whatever comes next together." He opened the box to reveal a delicate gold ring with a small, perfect diamond. "Sophia O'Malley, would you do me the extraordinary honor of becoming my wife?" Tears filled Sophia's eyes as she looked from the ring to the man holding it, this man who had proven, day after day, that he was everything Marcus was not. Patient instead of demanding, supportive instead of controlling, honest instead of manipulative. "Yes," she whispered, her voice catching on the word. "Yes, Isaac Prescott, I will marry you." His face lit with joy as he slipped the ring onto her finger, then gathered her into his arms for a kiss that spoke of promise, of future, of home. When they finally parted, both breathless and smiling, Isaac pressed his forehead to hers. "I love you, Sophia," he said simply. "I have from the start, I think." "And I love you," she replied, the words flowing easily now, all fear vanquished in the certainty of his steadfast heart. "You showed me how to trust again, how to believe in the possibility of happiness." "Always," he promised, sealing the vow with another kiss as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky above Triple Creek, their creek now, their future, their home. 3 months later, on a crisp autumn day, Sophia stood in the back room of Loveland's small church, adjusting the lace veil that had been Mrs. Jennings' wedding gift. Her simple ivory gown, made by her own hands with help from the Peterson women, fit perfectly, emphasizing her slender frame and bringing out the glow in her cheeks. A knock at the door preceded Mrs. Jennings herself, who entered with Isaac's mother, Elizabeth Prescott, a gentle-faced woman who had arrived from Boston 2 weeks earlier and immediately taken Sophia into her heart. "Oh, my dear," Elizabeth said, her eyes misting. "You look absolutely beautiful. My son is a fortunate man indeed." "I'm the fortunate one," Sophia replied with a smile, "to have found such a family to belong to." Mrs. Jennings dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. "Never thought I'd see the day when our Sophia would trust a man enough to marry him. But if anyone deserved that trust, it's Isaac Prescott." A second knock heralded Sheriff Daniels, looking uncomfortable but dignified in his best suit. "Ladies," he nodded respectfully, "it's time." When Sophia had hesitantly asked if he would walk her down the aisle, the sheriff had been visibly moved. "Be an honor," he'd said gruffly, "seeing as how I've looked after you since you arrived in Loveland." Now he offered his arm with a rare smile. "Ready, Miss O'Malley, for the last time with that name." Sophia took a deep breath. Memories of her first wedding, small, hurried, shadowed by her father's recent death, and Marcus's calculated charm flashing through her mind. How different this day felt, with a community of friends surrounding her and a man waiting at the altar whom she trusted completely. "I'm ready," she said firmly, taking the sheriff's arm. The small church was filled with familiar faces, the townspeople of Loveland who had become her friends, her family, her community. Isaac's mother and sisters sat in the front pew, alongside the hands from Triple Creek, who had helped transform the ranch into the thriving operation it now was. And at the altar, waiting with barely contained joy, stood Isaac. His eyes never left her as she walked down the aisle on Sheriff Daniels' arm. In his gaze, Sophia saw everything she had once thought forever lost to her: love, respect, partnership, home. When Pastor Richards asked, "Who gives this woman to be married to this man?" Sheriff Daniels replied with simple dignity, "She gives herself with the blessing of her friends and community." The ceremony was brief but heartfelt. When it came time for their vows, Isaac took both her hands in his voice steady and sure. "Sophia, when I first walked into your store, you looked at me with such distrust that I almost turned around and walked right back out." A ripple of gentle laughter moved through the congregation. "But something told me to stay, to try to earn your trust, even if it took years. I'm grateful every day that I listened to that instinct." He squeezed her hands gently. "I vow to honor your strength and independence, to support your dreams as fervently as my own, to stand beside you through whatever life brings us. I promise to be worthy of the trust you've placed in me today and every day for the rest of our lives." Tears blurred Sophia's vision as she began her own vows. "Isaac, you came into my life when I believed I would never trust again, never love again. Your patience, your kindness, your unwavering support showed me that the walls I had built were keeping out joy as surely as they were keeping out pain." She blinked back happy tears. "I vow to continue growing with you, to face our challenges together as equal partners. I promise to trust in your love, even in moments of doubt or fear. And I promise to love you with all the fullness of a heart that you helped to heal." As Pastor Richard pronounced them husband and wife, Isaac drew Sophia into a kiss that sealed their vows and promised a lifetime of tomorrows. The church erupted in cheers and applause, Mrs. Jennings' happy sobs audible above the celebration. The reception at Triple Creek Ranch lasted well into the evening, with lanterns illuminating the yard and music from a local string band encouraging dancing and merriment. As dusk fell, Sophia found a moment of quiet on the porch of what was now their home, gazing out at the land that stretched before them. Isaac joined her, slipping an arm around her waist. "Having regrets yet, Mrs. Prescott?" he teased gently. "Not a single one," she replied, leaning into his embrace. "Though I'm still getting used to the name. "We have a lifetime for that," he murmured, dropping a kiss on her temple. Sophia turned in his arms to face him, her expression growing serious. "Thank you, Isaac." "For what?" "For proving you were different, for being patient when I pushed you away, for helping me find the courage to trust again." He cupped her face in his hands, his eyes filled with such love it took her breath away. "Loving you has been the easiest, most natural thing I've ever done, Sophia. And the most rewarding." As they sealed this promise with a kiss, the sounds of celebration surrounding them, Sophia knew with absolute certainty that the walls around her heart had not just been breached, they had been transformed into a foundation for something far stronger. A love built on trust, respect, and the courage to believe again. 5 years later, Sophia sat on the porch of their expanded home at Triple Creek, watching Isaac teaching their 4-year-old son Daniel to ride his pony in the fenced yard. Their daughter, 2-year-old Elizabeth, named for Isaac's mother, napped against Sophia's shoulder, her small hand curled trustingly around her mother's finger. The ranch had prospered under their joint management, with Sophia bringing her business acumen to complement Isaac's practical ranching skills. They had expanded their herd, built a new barn, and added several rooms to the original foreman's cabin, transforming it into a comfortable family home filled with laughter and love. Sophia had kept her store in town, now managed by Charlotte Peterson, who had surprised everyone by revealing a shrewd head for business. She split her time between the ranch and town, finding fulfillment in both roles: wife, mother, businesswoman, rancher. As Isaac hoisted a giggling Daniel off the pony and spun him around in celebration of his successful ride, Sophia reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. The memory of Marcus Tate had faded to a distant shadow, his power over her long vanquished. He had been convicted of multiple counts of fraud and attempted murder, sentenced to 20 years in a federal prison. Sophia had reclaimed her father's estate with the help of a new lawyer, using much of the recovered funds to expand both the ranch and her store. But more than material success, she had found what once seemed impossible: a life built on trust, a love that strengthened rather than diminished her, a family founded on mutual respect and genuine partnership. Isaac looked up, catching her eye across the yard. His smile, still as warm and honest as the day they met, sent the familiar flutter through her heart. He set Daniel down with instructions to lead the pony back to its pen, then crossed to join Sophia on the porch. "How are my girls?" he asked, settling beside her and dropping a kiss on Elizabeth's downy head before claiming Sophia's lips in a more lingering caress. "Contemplative," Sophia replied, shifting the sleeping toddler more comfortably in her arms. "I was just thinking about how far we've come." Isaac's arm wrapped around her shoulders, drawing her against his side. "Having regrets?" he teased, echoing the question he'd asked on their wedding day. Sophia looked up at him, this man who had proven with every day of their marriage that he was indeed different, that love could be freeing rather than constraining, supportive rather than demanding. "Not a single one," she answered truthfully. "Every step, even the painful ones, led me here to you, to our children, to this life we've built together." Isaac's eyes, still as blue as the Colorado sky, softened with emotion. "I promised I'd be worthy of your trust, Sophia. I hope I've kept that promise." In response, Sophia leaned up to kiss him, pouring into the gesture all the love and trust that had grown between them over the years. "Every day," she whispered against his lips, "every single day." As the sun began its descent over Triple Creek, painting the land in hues of gold and amber, Sophia Prescott watched her son running toward them across the yard, his face alight with accomplishment and joy. With her daughter sleeping trustingly against her heart and her husband's strong arm around her shoulders, she knew with absolute certainty that she had found her true home not in the walls of a store or a ranch house, but in the love of a man who had patiently, persistently shown her that trust, once shattered, could be rebuilt stronger than before.